A bright, breezy Saturday morning at Kings Mountain State Park in South Carolina. A place of green, sprawling trees, quiet lakes, and winding trails that climb up into the mountains. Henry Hudson, an 8-year-old boy, follows his weekly ritual of going to the park with his dad, William, a well-respected police captain. Little does Henry know, this morning will change his life forever. Welcome to our channel, where we dive into powerful stories that leave you on the edge of your seat. Let us know the part of the word you are watching from. Today's tale is one of suspense, unexpected danger, and a bond tested in a moment of injustice. Prepare for a captivating journey as we explore the events of one unforgettable Saturday morning at the park. The sun rose gently over Kings Mountain State Park, casting warm, golden rays across its vast landscape. This park in South Carolina, with its towering trees, shaded paths, and quiet lakes, felt like a peaceful escape from the world. People often came here to clear their minds, enjoy nature, or lose themselves in the cool embrace of the woods and mountains. Every Saturday morning, 8-year-old Henry Hudson joined his father, William, for their weekly ritual in this serene place. Henry loved these mornings. Dressed in a crisp white collar shirt, sporty shorts, and sneakers, he looked every bit as eager as he felt. He clutched his javelin, a polished wooden stick he had practiced with for weeks. He was preparing for his first ever competition, and today was all about sharpening his skills. His father, Captain William Hudson, jogged along the park's winding paths. Tall and sturdy, with the calm authority of a police captain, William was well known and respected. He knew every inch of the park, but today he let Henry have his own space for practice, keeping only a watchful eye on him as he ran his usual route. As Henry made his way to a small clearing, he took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the fresh scent of pine. Birds chirped in the branches above, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and everything around him seemed perfect for a day of practice. Henry's face lit up with joy as he held the javelin firmly, his eyes narrowing in concentration as he visualized the perfect throw. What he didn't see was Officer Sophia. Sophia lived on the edge of the park, a place that gave her both a sense of power and control over the land around her. She had always been stern-faced and intense, a policewoman with a chilling, cold stare. Beside her stood Gunther, her Belgian Malinois, a fiercely loyal and powerful dog with lean muscles and watchful, amber eyes that glinted in the morning sun. His ears were perked up, sensing something unusual. Gunther, like Sophia, was trained to be alert, ready to respond to any command, any danger, real or imagined. As Sophia watched Henry, her gaze hardened. From her window, she had often seen people coming to the park, but something about this boy's focused throwing and the javelin in his hand didn't sit right with her. She narrowed her eyes, feeling an unwelcome mix of annoyance and suspicion. The dog stood still, eyes locked on the boy as if he understood his handler's mood. Sophia's lips twisted into a frown. She convinced herself that Henry, with his repeated throws, must be disrupting the peace of the park or worse, destroying the delicate vegetation. It didn't matter to her that he was just a child practicing. To Sophia, it was an offense. Henry lifted the javelin, his small, determined face lined with concentration. He lunged forward, the javelin slicing through the air with grace and precision, landing cleanly in the patch of soft dirt. He beamed, thrilled with his progress, and ran to retrieve it. But behind him, Sophia's impatience grew, her fingers tapping against her side as she watched with irritation. Unaware of the eyes on him, Henry continued his throws, each one feeling more satisfying than the last. With every attempt, his confidence grew, and his excitement to make his father proud glowed on his face. Inside the house, Sophia's stare turned icy. She muttered under her breath, her annoyance morphing into a sharp, rigid decision. Without a second thought, she gave a low, commanding whistle. Gunther, her loyal partner, went on high alert, muscles tensing as he waited for her next move. His sharp, attentive eyes were fixed on Henry, ready to leap at Sophia's command. Outside, Henry felt a strange sensation in the air. a quiet, almost invisible tension, but brushed it off, focusing on his next throw. He couldn't have known that from the window above, cold eyes were locked on him, and that Gunther was inching closer, every nerve primed to obey. The birds fell silent. The wind stopped. And in that breathless moment, everything changed. Henry lined up for his next throw, blissfully unaware that danger was closing in around him. Henry's throw soared gracefully through the air, arcing over the soft grass and landing perfectly near his target. A grin spread across his face, eyes gleaming with the pride of a well-executed throw. He had practiced hard, and it was paying off. To him, this felt like freedom, his way of proving he was ready for the upcoming javelin competition. He ran eagerly to retrieve the stick, preparing for another attempt. But just across the way, Officer Sophia watched with a growing sense of irritation, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. In her mind, the park was hers to monitor and control, and the little boy in the white shirt and shorts, with his determined focus, seemed to be nothing but a disruption to the peace she had created. The sight of Henry's repeated throws, each one more skillful than the last, annoyed her deeply, though she barely knew why. As she narrowed her eyes, Sophia convinced herself that Henry wasn't just playing. He was disturbing the order she cherished. It didn't matter to her that he was just an 8-year-old practicing for a competition. He was infringing on what she saw as her space. Her frustration twisted into something darker, a simmering resentment that blurred any thought of fairness. Beside her stood Gunther, her Belgian Malinois. His sleek, muscular body was still, his ears perked up as he sensed Sophia's agitation. Gunther had been her partner in police work for years, a dog renowned for his sharp focus, intelligence, and ability to follow commands without hesitation. His intense amber eyes tracked Henry's every movement, mirroring Sophia's irritation. The slightest change in her posture, the tension in her hands, was enough for him to understand that his handler was not pleased. Sophia gripped Gunther's leash, her knuckles whitening as she held back a wave of anger. She leaned down and, in a low, icy voice, commanded, "Deal with him." It was all Gunther needed to hear. In an instant, Gunther's demeanor changed. His body tensed, muscles coiled, ready to pounce. He lowered his stance, eyes locked on Henry, as he prepared to unleash his training. He was no ordinary dog. He was a finely tuned, highly intelligent animal bred for discipline and precision. Originally from Malines in Belgium, the Malinois breed had been perfected for herding, but was now widely respected for its agility, loyalty, and intense focus. And under Sophia's control, Gunther was more than a dog. He was a weapon. Oblivious to the brewing danger, Henry picked up his javelin, brushing off a bit of dirt and positioning himself again, excitement twinkling in his eyes. He took a deep breath, his fingers curling around the polished wood, focusing entirely on his target. In his world, there was only the next throw, the thrill of hitting his mark, and the pride he felt in getting closer to his goal. The park felt as safe as ever, and he felt free to let his focus consume him. Just as he was about to throw, a low, chilling growl broke through the quiet. Henry's hand froze midair, his heart jumping at the unexpected sound. He glanced back, and the smile faded from his face as his eyes landed on Gunther, a fierce, snarling figure in the distance, muscles rippling under his short fur, teeth bared, and eyes blazing with intensity. Confusion morphed into fear as Gunther broke into a run, paws pounding against the ground as he closed the distance between them with alarming speed. Henry dropped his javelin, his instincts urging him to step back, but his legs felt frozen in place. He had never seen a dog like this, and the snarling, fierce creature bearing down on him seemed more like a nightmare than reality. The park, once filled with the gentle hum of birds and rustling leaves, fell eerily silent as Gunther's growls grew louder. Henry's pulse hammered in his ears, his thoughts jumbled as he tried to process what was happening. Why was the dog coming at him? What had he done wrong? Sophia's cold voice echoed in the distance, too faint to understand but unmistakably commanding. To Gunther, This was an order, and to Henry, it was the beginning of a terrifying chase. In a final burst of instinct, Henry broke into a run, his small legs pumping furiously as he tried to escape. But Gunther was fast, faster than anything he could have imagined. The ground blurred beneath Henry's feet, his sneakers pounding against the earth as he darted toward the open field, desperately hoping someone, anyone, would see what was happening and come to his rescue. But the people in the park had been scattered along the paths, and no one was close enough to notice the unfolding danger. Henry's breaths grew ragged, his eyes wide with fear as Gunther closed in, his shadow falling over Henry like a dark cloud. Just as he felt the dog's hot breath on his skin, Henry tripped on a stray root, stumbling and hitting the ground hard. Pain shot through his knee, but there was no time to think about it. He looked back, paralyzed as Gunther loomed over him, teeth bared, ready to strike. It was then that Henry did the only thing he could think of. He squeezed his eyes shut, hoping this was all just a bad dream. Henry's world shrank to the terrifying sight of Gunther, ears back, fangs bared, eyes blazing with a chilling focus as he charged closer. His instincts screamed at him to move, but his feet felt glued to the ground. Just as Gunther lunged, snapping jaws coming terrifyingly close, Henry twisted his body, trying to dodge the dog's attack. But he wasn't fast enough. Gunther's teeth clamped onto Henry's wrist, his powerful jaws piercing through skin and muscle with ease. Pain shot up Henry's arm like fire, and he let out a scream high-pitched and filled with pure terror. The searing pain made his vision blur, and he desperately tried to pull his hand free. But Gunther's grip only tightened. Tears sprang to his eyes, and he screamed again, louder, hoping someone, anyone, would come to help him. Around him, a few park-goers began to notice the horrifying scene. One teenage girl, about 15, stood nearby, her eyes widening as she realized what was happening. She watched for a moment, frozen in shock, before her fingers fumbled for her phone. Trembling, she started recording, her instincts telling her this wasn't just an accident. Something was very, very wrong. "Someone help him," she cried, her voice barely louder than a whisper, though inside, her heart was pounding wildly. Across the park, Captain William Hudson heard the distant scream. He stopped mid-jog, a strange unease settling over him. There was something chillingly familiar about the sound, and it struck a chord deep within him. The scream echoed again, more desperate this time, and William's heart clenched with dread. "Henry," he muttered under his breath, and without a second thought, he broke into a sprint, heading toward the direction of the sound. Panic set in, his mind racing with fear as he pushed his body faster than he ever had before. As William drew closer, the scene came into focus. His eyes locked on Henry, his son, pinned to the ground with Gunther's jaw latched onto his wrist, the dog's sharp teeth embedded in his skin. The sight made his blood run cold. Time seemed to freeze, and the horror of the moment settled over him like a dark cloud. "Stop," William's voice boomed, carrying the authority of years on the force, his tone commanding immediate respect. Gunther's ears flicked, his fierce grip loosening slightly as he registered the command. William stepped closer, his voice steady but seething with intensity. "Let go. Now." Obedient to a fault, Gunther finally released Henry's wrist, backing away with a hesitant whimper, as if unsure why he was being ordered to stop. The dog stood still, muscles tense and eyes darting between William and Henry, the remnants of his attack clear in the blood on his muzzle. William rushed forward, dropping to his knees beside his son. Henry clutched his wrist, blood seeping between his fingers, his face pale with pain and shock. He looked up at his father, tears streaming down his cheeks, his voice barely a whisper. "Dad." The crowd that had started to gather around the scene shifted nervously, glancing from the injured boy to the imposing man kneeling beside him. Whispers spread as recognition dawned on a few faces. This wasn't just any father. This was Captain William Hudson, a respected figure in the local police force. Officer Sophia, who had been watching from a distance, felt her stomach drop as she realized what was unfolding before her. The anger, the bitter satisfaction she'd felt moments before, vanished, replaced by a chilling realization. The boy she'd targeted, the boy she'd allowed Gunther to attack, was the son of a police captain. William looked up, his gaze landing on Sophia with a fury that could cut through steel. She felt the weight of his stare, icy and penetrating, and her pulse quickened as she recognized the consequences of what she'd done. She had assumed Henry was just a troublemaker, a kid causing a disturbance in her park. But now, the truth was undeniable and terrifying. She had ordered her dog to attack the son of a high-ranking officer. The teenage girl who had been recording stepped closer, still filming, her eyes locked on Sophia. In a shaky voice, she called out, I got it all on camera. Everything. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper, but it echoed through the crowd, sealing Sophia's fate. The murmur among the onlookers grew louder, outrage simmering as they processed what they had just witnessed. William, still kneeling beside his son, glanced at the girl and gave a nod of appreciation, his face etched with a mix of gratitude and grim resolve. He turned back to Sophia, his voice cold and measured. What were you thinking, Officer Sophia? He demanded, each word laced with a barely contained anger. His eyes flicked to Gunther, the dog now sitting obediently by her side, oblivious to the turmoil he caused. Sophia stammered, her face pale. I thought he was disturbing the park, throwing things around. Disturbing the park. William's voice rose, his fury evident. This is an 8-year-old boy practicing for a competition. You unleashed a trained police dog on a child, my son. Do you have any idea what you've done? Sophia opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. The shame, the realization of her mistake, weighed heavily on her, and all she could do was look away, avoiding William's piercing gaze. William's voice softened, turning to his son with a gentleness that melted his previous anger. Let's get you looked at, Henry. You're safe now. As he lifted Henry gently into his arms, the crowd parted, giving them space. The whispers grew louder, and the look of judgment from every bystander was now fixed on Officer Sophia. She had made a terrible mistake, one that couldn't be erased, and the recording captured by the teenage girl meant there would be no hiding from the truth. With his son safely cradled in his arms, William glanced back one final time, the gravity of the situation pressing down on him. Knowing this was far from over, William held Henry close, gently supporting his son's injured wrist. The bite was deep, the skin around it red and swollen, with small streams of blood seeping through his son's fingers. Henry's face was pale, and though his eyes shimmered with unshed tears, he bit his lip, holding them back. The pain was intense, but Henry was determined to be brave. William's heart ached with a mixture of sorrow and anger, the image of his son hurt and vulnerable burning into his mind. Just then, the teenage girl who had recorded the incident approached, her expression a mix of concern and nervousness. She extended her phone toward William, hesitating only slightly before speaking up. I got it all on video. Everything from when the officer told the dog to attack to when she didn't stop it. William nodded solemnly, his face hardening with determination. He took the phone, glancing at the screen, and his anger simmered under the surface. It was clear, undeniable evidence of Officer Sophia's reckless and prejudiced actions. Sophia, still standing at a distance, looked away, clearly uncomfortable as she felt the weight of every eye on her. William's gaze was icy and firm. There would be justice for his son, and he would ensure it. Later, at the police station, William handed over the phone, the video displayed for all to see. The room grew quiet as his colleagues, fellow officers, watched the recording, their expressions shifting from shock to dismay as they witnessed Sophia's actions. In the video, her cold command to Gunther was unmistakable, her intentions clear. It was painfully obvious that she had acted out of prejudice, unfairly targeting an innocent child in what she deemed her park. When the video ended, William's superior, Chief Daniels, looked up, his face clouded with disappointment and anger. "This behavior, it's completely unacceptable," he stated firmly, glancing from William to the other officers in the room. "Officer Sophia has betrayed the trust and responsibility that comes with this badge. She will be suspended immediately, required to undergo extensive retraining, and she is hereby demoted from her current position." Sophia's face turned ashen as the reality of her punishment set in. She opened her mouth as if to speak but stopped herself, realizing there was nothing she could say to justify what she had done. She had made a terrible mistake, and now she would face the consequences. The decision was meant to set an example, condemning the abuse of power and underscoring the importance of fairness within the force. The justice served was a comfort to William, though the journey wasn't over yet. Henry still had a long path of healing ahead of him, and the emotional scars from the terrifying incident would take time to fade. But he had hope that this would be a powerful lesson for both of them, one that underscored the value of standing up against what's wrong, no matter how difficult it may be. In the days that followed, Henry's wounds slowly healed, both physically and emotionally. He underwent treatment, the bite gradually mending as he bravely endured the process. William was by his side every step of the way, reminding him that strength wasn't just about physical bravery. It was also about standing tall against things that aren't fair. He wanted Henry to understand that, despite some moments of injustice, there were still people within the system dedicated to what's right. One Saturday morning, a few weeks later, William and Henry returned to Kings Mountain State Park. The familiar path, the towering trees, and the gentle rustle of leaves felt different this time, though the park's beauty remained. Henry's hand still bore a faint scar, a reminder of that fateful day, but his confidence had returned. Clutching his javelin with a renewed sense of purpose, he walked toward the clearing where he had once practiced, his father by his side. William gave him a gentle pat on the shoulder, smiling. "Remember, Henry, bravery isn't just about being strong in tough moments. Sometimes it's about standing up for what's right, even when it's hard." Henry looked up at his dad, a small proud smile breaking across his face. "I know, Dad," he replied, his voice steady. He took a deep breath, steadied his hand, and prepared for his first throw since the attack. The javelin flew through the air, straight and true, hitting his target with precision. A sense of triumph filled him, not just for his throw, but for conquering the fear that had once clouded his love for the sport. The scene was a powerful reminder that even in a world with moments of darkness, there was always a path back to the light. Henry's courage had grown, and he felt stronger than before. With his dad by his side, he knew he could face anything. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember, it's our duty to protect children, to stand against unfairness, and to make our communities safe for everyone. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that bring light to important lessons and inspire us all. Stay strong, stay brave, and together, let's make a difference.